Okay, so I'm joined now by an all-star panel of political thinkers because these may be the primaries, but they speak volumes about the next stage in all of these races. Bill Kristol is one of the deans of conservative commentators and currently editor-at-large of The Bulwark. Chris Stirewalt is contributing editor of The Dispatch and senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Tara Setmeyer is senior advisor to the Lincoln Project, and Joanna Mosca is a communications consultant and veteran of the Obama White House press office. So welcome to all of you. I'm going to start with you, Bill Kristol, if I can. I suppose this isn't a surprise, seeing how JD did tonight, although it kind of is, because this was what everyone was waiting to see, right? Was Donald Trump going to have the sway that he once had? Would he still have it? Are you surprised?
I'm not surprised, but it is worth noting. I mean, you pointed this out, but just to put a dot on the point you were making. But on February 15th, what's that, 2.5 weeks ago, when Donald Trump endorsed JD Vance was at 10%. He was at third in the polls. Gibbons and Mandel, who were competing also for Trump's endorsement and for the Trump vote, were 21% each. Trump endorses Vance. It's the same candidate. There are no new themes in the race, really. It's just the Trump endorsement. He goes from 10% to 30%. It's very hard to think of other instances in recent American politics. Chris Stirewalt may know one. He knows he's got good knowledge of all this, that where one endorsement like that, 2.5 weeks out in a primary, takes a candidate who's lagging, and he hadn't been moving up at all, who's lagging at 10%, takes him to 30% and to a victory.
Yeah. So, Chris, Bill just said it, but it wasn't just JD's race. It was a lot of the other races, too. I think last count I saw he was 9 for 9 or something on his endorsements and those who were leading, in tonight's results. So is this sort of now the way it's going to be? Is this how we're going to look at all of the campaigning going forward from this night? Everybody all in if they weren't already?
Well, you can tell what kind of state Ohio is politically, right? It's a blue-collar, working class. The themes that you will hear from JD Vance will be the same themes that you will hear from Tim Ryan. They're going to go for the same voters. They're going to talk about the same stuff. They're going to beat up on China. They're going to talk about inflation, and they're going to see which one of them can most closely mirror what voters there think. I will say this, as it relates to Trump's endorsement, Trump chose a propitious time. He got good advice on this one. Trump's made some real boners on some picks this cycle, but this one, the timing was good because the race was starting to consolidate. Gibbons was falling apart. He ran a terrible campaign, had awful debates. Just the bottom fell out. And you had a huge chunk of undecided, and you don't really get to it in a primary until the very, very end. And what Trump did was he got behind the candidate with momentum and rode it to the top. But I also think the two other big stories here is that Mike DeWine is winning so handily in his bid for governor after being on the wrong side of things with Trump, and also Dolan's success with a late surge. If Rob Portman hadn't endorsed Jane Timken, the former state party chairwoman, we might be looking at a different kind of race tonight because Dolan really showed strength in the home stretch.
So, Tara, jump in here on the notion that this is Ohio, okay? And it used to be when I moved to this country 20-some-odd years ago, like 27 years ago, that was the bellwether state. It could go either way, not anymore. Wow. So should we be talking in these terms, Tara, when we look ahead to other states, other Republican primaries, with regard to the effect that Trump is going to have?
Well, I think we need to be measured on what Trump's effect is, depending on the demographic. To Chris's point, he has made terrible endorsements in the past, and where it hasn't worked out so well. I'll be curious to see what happens in Georgia, in the general election, where he's endorsed Herschel Walker, or some of these other states where he's endorsed people who may win their primaries, but do not have a chance to win in a general election. It's a whole different ballgame when you're looking at a general electorate winning statewide. So it's clear, though, that the Republican primary has now become the party of Trumpism, that there really is no room for moderates in the party. And this is the example. Now, in Ohio, the economic message is critically important. We heard from JD Vance about China, the establishment, jobs, illegal immigration. These are issues that will be repeated over and over again and probably nationalized in a lot of the races when you come to the general election, because this is what the Republican Party wants to run on. How that works out once they get to a general, I don't know that all these other candidates can make that shift the way that JD Vance has. I mean, it's very interesting the type of candidate he is. He became everything he despised in 2016. And even though he was attacked for that in the primary, I hope that Tim Ryan's campaign can zero in on what does the America First agenda actually mean? Who is JD Vance actually? Is he the guy in 2016 or is he the guy now that'll say or do anything to get elected? I'm hoping that Tim Ryan can tell that story because I think it's an important one when someone is as hypocritical as JD Vance has been in his political career.
Okay, so Joanna, will they even need to tell that story, or will it be all about the elephant in the room, which is what just happened last night? That, you know, that pesky memo that got leaked from the Supreme Court. Like, is this going to be a race all about the electorate needs to deal with abortion now as opposed to, the third branch of government? Or are we going to be picking apart all the different things about different candidates and where they've fallen on different issues at different times?
I think this campaign is going to be about the economy. And just echoing what Tara was saying, I don't know that this was actually that big of a risk for Trump. I mean, Mandel was not a perfect candidate by any means. He had announced a divorce from his wife and mother of 3 children as he was gearing up for the race. JD Vance is so far from a perfect candidate. So, the interesting thing, I read Hillbilly Elegy, and I grew up in a town much like that, Galesburg, Illinois, and I responded to it in a way where I agreed with him in so many of our shared experiences, and then I have a very different policy prescription. And I thought, here's a candidate who could have heart when he ran the first time. I don't think that anymore. I mean, he's shown that he is a chameleon, and he's going to be whoever Donald Trump tells him to be. And I have to say, if a Democrat had thanked a child of a Biden on stage at a primary election, I think everyone would be outraged. So a couple things he said. Yes, he talked about some issues, but I don't think anybody needs to hear about his Tums. And I do think we need to hear where he actually stands on the issues. And it's going to be one of those things that you can't waffle anymore, because Tim Ryan has actually been working on these economic issues for a long time, and he's going to hold his feet to the fire.
All right, Joanna Maska, thank you so much. Bill Kristol, Chris Starr, Walton, Tara Setmeyer, thank you all for being here on this very important night. The season's just beginning, so I'll see more of you guys soon, I hope.
Yes, looking forward to it.
Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.